Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. Today I'm going to talk about the final film in this Francois Truffaut collection that Kino Lorber released earlier this year in 2023. And this is The Green Room. I've covered The Wild Child, Small Change, The Man Who Loved Women. Today, The Green Room, 1978, starring Francois Truffaut himself. This would be the third and final time that Truffaut would act in a leading role, and he really has a big role in this one. And it co-stars Natalie Baye, who by 1978 was becoming a substantial star. She had appeared in small roles in some previous Truffaut films. This is a very personal project that Truffaut worked on for years. The script going through many different permutations. Truffaut was a great reader of literature. He loved Henry James, and he based this film on three different Henry James stories. But the main one is a novella called Altar of the Dead from 1895, which I reread a couple nights ago. And it's about a man who is unable to escape the grief that he feels from the loss of his wife. In fact, in the book, in the story, it's his fiancée. They've never actually gotten married before she passed away, and the grief is just overwhelming to him. And he sets up an altar in a church, in an alcove of a church. That's allowing him to have sort of his own private shrine to the memory of his wife. And while it's there, he meets a young woman who seems to be there quite often in his alcove, also seeming to be praying for a dead loved one. They develop a friendship, and eventually they become connected. In a typical Henry James sort of twist at the end of a story, we find that this grieving pair have somebody in common. Who she is mourning is somebody that the man would never mourn. Now, Truffaut took this story and he changed it to post-World War I, 10 years after World War I. He very much compresses time here. In the story, covers decades from the time that they're fairly young to old age. Here we have no sense of time, of how much time is elapsing. This is very much sort of a fairy tale kind of story in many ways, and particularly that way. And it's really a brilliant change to set it in 1929 or 28, because in the opening montage we see the Truffaut character, Julian, we see his image of his face superimposed over what appears to be horrifying newsreel images of the dead of World War I, in which Julian feels immense guilt just from that situation, that he escaped unscathed from World War I while all his friends died. And we are constantly reminded of the war throughout the film as we see soldiers who have been wounded in wheelchairs and walking around in canes. And so there's an extra added kind of guilt to the mourning that Julian feels for his wife. So he eventually, in the movie, he eventually pays homage to all the dead who have affected his life. He's not honoring all the dead, but his dead, those who were integral in his life. And he believes he is astonished that people don't remember the dead, that they have forgotten them, or they might, on one day a year, they might remember him. He believes he's keeping the dead alive by remembering them with such intensity and building shrines. And the woman in the story from Henry James's story Cecilia, she's played by Natalie Bai, and she too, here Truffaut keeps pretty close to the storyline in order to get to the Henry James twist. She is remembering one person, not all the dead, but one person, and Julian sees in her sees a bond with her that she too will take care of the dead, will look after the shrines should something happen to him. It doesn't sound like a very very audience-pleasing movie. It sounds like it could be very morbid, and certainly this obsession with death is seen as being morbid. This kind of fanaticism, this inability to find joy in the living, instead living with the dead. And it's all filmed in a very austere style. I would say detached. Truffaut's movies often do have that detached feeling to them. I found the film fascinating, absolutely fascinating, scene after scene, because the emotions of the film that don't seem to be there in any particular scene grow through the repetition of scenes. And it also has a sort of musical rhythm to it. And in fact, Truffaut used a 1936 piece of music by Maurice Joubert, which he had used many times, I think 3 or 4 times in the past, called Concert Flamand. And he would play this music with its very strange rhythms to it, almost at times sort of discordant. He would play this on the set so that both the cast, and it's a very small cast, would kind of absorb the music, and not just the cast, but the crew itself, and especially Nestor Almendros, who photographed this film. So in the movie, he refurbishes a damaged from the war chapel, and he now has candles everywhere, everyone reflecting one of his dead. Truffaut said that he had a very strange sensation when he had watched Shoot the Piano Player, which I think was his second film, and as he was watching, realized that almost everybody in the cast had died. So there's pictures on the wall in this chapel full of candles, and it's beautiful. It's Almendros's cinematography of candlelit, the natural light of candles, which he has contrasted with electric light in the house where Julian lives. So there's pictures on the wall, and they go pretty, and the camera pans around fairly quickly. But I did notice Henry James, a photograph of Henry James, Oscar Wilde, Oscar Werner, who was in Jules and Jim in Fahrenheit 451 with Francois Truffaut. So it's very much a personal film to Truffaut, and you can read it in many different ways. But in France it was a critical success. Truffaut's friends and main critics in France all loved the film, all complimented on what a beautifully unusual film he had made here. But it didn't do well at the office, as you could expect from my description of the film. It's not the kind of film audiences might take to, but Truffaut was for whom this film meant a whole lot too, was really disappointed with its failure. And in the U.S., it did not get good reviews. It did get a fairly good review from Vincent Canby, but overall probably negative. The biggest complaint about the film was Truffaut himself playing the role of Julian. He has sort of a deadpan look to him. He is not a professional actor, and it is quite a task. This is a large role. Natalie Bai said that she had problems acting with him because he was so mechanical in his role, and he was very discouraged that he wasn't doing a good enough job, and he threatened at one point to just stop shooting. That there's no way that I can go on acting in this role. I'm just not good enough. And he rued that he had not cast Charles Denner. This is Truffaut. This on the cover here. This is Truffaut as Julian in the green room. It's a film shot in color, however. Charles Denner had been the star of his previous film, The Man Who Loved Women, and he's in almost every scene, and Truffaut really was reluctant to make another film with Denner, where Denner again would be in just about every scene. But I've read other things that Denner, in my research, that Denner wasn't actually available. But when Truffaut looked back at the film, he only lived another 3 or 4 years. Truffaut, he regretted that he didn't cast Denner in the role. But there's lots to think about in this film. I remember when I saw it when it came out, there was general disappointment. I can remember coming out. I saw it in the Ritz Theater in Philadelphia, which was the art house, very popular in 1978 theater down close to the Delaware River in Philadelphia. And I can remember going to this film and coming out and there was, what was that about? People were very perplexed by it, as I was too. But watching it today, and especially within the context of Truffaut's movies, these 4 movies plus the 2 others that I've seen, I talked about Mississippi Mermaid last year, but The Bride Wore Black and The Story of Adele H, which have single releases, are stories about obsession. So is The Man Who Loved Women, and so is The Green Room. These are stories about obsessions, and there is a metaphor here as well for cinema itself, that this chapel is sort of like a theater, and all the candles stand for all the movies of very obsessed. The new wave directors were obsessed with cinema, and the most extreme cinephilia you can imagine. Truffaut spent hours a day often in going from movie to movie, movie house to movie house. Remember, this is the day before. Truffaut, I don't even think lived long enough to the VHS days. He would have loved DVD and Blu-rays to have all these films at hand. And he would always bemoan, why isn't this Jacques Becker film made in 1943? Why doesn't it ever shown? Well, are we forgetting it? We need to remember this. So all these candles could as well serve in this particular metaphor as a metaphor for cinema. Now, I'm really sorry that there aren't more Truffaut films for me to talk about, at least as far as these Kino editions. There's 11 more Truffaut films streaming on the Criterion Channel. I'm going to go back, and I'm in the process of going back and watching some more of those. And I would say these are very personal films, but there are a lot to think about. The construction of the film, as I mentioned, the kind of musical rhythm to it. Of the other 2 films, 3 films, 2 of which I talked about earlier this year, I think the Story of Adele H, another story of fanatical obsession, I think stands as one of his great films. But these are forgotten, and when I was watching The Green Room, I was thinking about all these films that Truffaut had made that are forgotten. But thank God, even though Kino didn't put any extras on these 4 films, there's commentaries on the other 3. At least they're out there. They can be remembered in my very small, minute way, and remembering them today. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.